Hello all and welcome this afternoon to our session. We've got Chris Nash for you here today. He's Head of Community and Discovery Education. Chris has been involved in education for over 30 years. He previously worked as a classroom practitioner, local advisory for the authority, senior education
Hello
consultant.
all and welcome this afternoon to our session. We've got Chris Nash for you here today. He's Head of Community and Discovery Education. Chris has been involved in education for over 30 years. He previously worked as a classroom practitioner, local advisory for the authority, senior education consultant. Hello all.
Carrie, shall I try that one again?
You can, but we've just lost Chris and his PowerPoint, so I'm just waiting for him to come back in again, and then we'll go again.
So could you hear that loop in your ears as well?
I could, yeah.
Okay, sorry guys.
Should we try it again?
Yeah, it just crashed completely. So let me just get that up again. There's obviously a problem with my end on. Why has that not come up? There's obviously a problem on my end with Teams. I can't see why it's causing this, but let's have another go and hopefully it will run this time.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Try one more. Okay. Fingers crossed.
Okay, so if you're still with us, apologies for that very strange loop effects that we had before. It's very disconcerting when you hear your own voice over and over in your head, and I think, what do I actually sound like that? So I'll start again to introduce you to Chris, who's our speaker with us this afternoon. So Chris is Head of Community at Discovery Education. He spent much of the last 20 years pioneering teaching and learning through the use of technology, and he has a passion for innovating along with a deep pedagogical understanding of how technology can have a profound impact on the way we teach, learn, work and live our lives. So he's very perfect for our conference that we're running today. So he works closely with educators at all levels, focusing on best practice and digital learning. He's currently immersed in transforming teaching and learning through the use of XR technologies, and is proud to have built the foundation for the immersive team at Discovery Education. Chris has also been successfully funded by the Arts Council England for a number of creative projects utilising cutting-edge technology for performance and audience interaction, and he regularly speaks nationally on these topics that he's very passionate about. So we're very pleased to have him here. So I shall hand over to Chris and hope that the loop thing has disappeared, never to return again.
Fantastic. Thanks ever so much, Nida. It does sound to be running perfectly today, so that's absolutely wonderful. So welcome to this afternoon. We're going to be looking at some teaching strategies for developing deeper learning and critical thinking skills in a 21st century classroom. But I think two things really strike me here. Why are we still discussing the needs of learners in the 21st century when we are already 1/5 of the way through that century? It does seem a little bit bizarre from that perspective. And also, as the 21st century runs its course, it's increasingly unhelpful to talk of 21st century skills as if we do not yet either know what they are or somehow assume that they'll remain the same for the next 8 decades, which I really hope isn't the case. So really the conversation needs to shift away from a rallying cry towards the detailed pedagogical design work, a rallying cry, and much further towards the detailed pedagogical design work needed by teachers to embed learning in every aspect of formal and informal life in school, so they will become habitual for students, and make them available to them for learning for their life, to be lifelong learners effectively. So as we explore this topic of 21st century learning environments, it's a rather more complex process than you might think, and it's certainly not something that is answered or addressed by a piece of equipment or a piece of technology. Ultimately, it is a complete mindset of change of mindset that we're looking for. And I guess the dilemma for educators is that some of the routine cognitive skills, the kind of skills that are easiest to teach and easiest to test, are also the skills that are easiest to digitize, automate, or even outsource. Let's have I've got my Google Home next to me here, so let's have a little test of some of the things that are available to us, even just through simple voice assistants. OK, Google, what's a relative clause?
Here's a summary from Wikipedia. A relative clause is a kind of subordinate clause that contains the element whose interpretation is provided by an antecedent on which the subordinate clause is grammatically dependent. That is, there is an anaphoric relation between the relativized element in the relative clause and antecedent on which it depends.
OK, thank you. OK, Google, give me an example of a modal verb.
On the website study.com, they say, examples of modal verbs include can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will and would.
OK, thank you, Google. What was fascinating, actually, I held a conversation with Google earlier, and it actually tried to draw me into a conversation and give me more detail and information about things like modal verbs and whatever question I asked it. So if we have access to this kind of technology at our sides pretty much all the time, how does that impact on the role of the teacher? Does it change the dimensions for the role of the teacher? Does it shift the emphasis away from a more knowledge-led curriculum into a more skills-led curriculum? I'm sure time will tell, but we certainly need to be addressing this now. So I'm going to put a bit of challenge to you. I'm going to ask you to get involved and do a bit of a collaborative exercise now. So I'm posing the question to you. What is the role of education in the 21st century? What is it that we are preparing our pupils for? Now, at its core, the role of education has always been to prepare students to become active, successful and contributing members of society. I guess the essence of education's role has not really changed, but the position of education in the classroom fundamentally should be changing. So what is it that we are trying to draw out of our pupils? What are the skills that we need to prepare them for the 21st century world of work? So I've got a little live poll going on here. If you've got a smartphone handy, or if you've got a digital device to hand that you can open up a new browser window, you can either go to pollev.com/chrisnash442, or if you'd rather use your phone, you can text the words Chris Nash 442 to the following number: 07480 781 235. You'll then get a reply in your text message box, and then any words that you type after that should appear in a lovely word cloud on the screen. This is one of those kind of slightly scary moments, seat of the pants moments, where you do a live poll, and I've done this many times now, and you throw it out there and you're waiting for the responses, and you're slightly nervous that there's a blank screen completely behind you, but usually it gets flooded with comments as we move through. So let's see if anyone's sharing their tips and ideas. Great. OK, so we've got collaboration has come up there as a nice terminology there. What else are we looking at? Skills, I'm not sure quite what that means. Maybe someone will clarify that, please. Possibly they were looking at skills, I guess. Yeah, lovely. Let's keep these going, because what should be happening with this word cloud is the more words are repeated on here, we should start to see them appear in slightly larger. Lovely. I've got self-determined coming up there. Fantastic. Certainly skills seems to be a very important part of that process. Learning, yeah, I'd love to know a little bit more about learning if anyone's out there. Which aspects of learning are you particularly focusing on? Be really useful to know that. I'm going to be doing some more work around word clouds shortly, and showing you how you can use these as teaching tools to really start to develop some more critical thinking. Self-determined, very important one, you know, really is about pupils taking charge of their learning and taking charge of their careers, taking charge of their pathways. Now, I was particularly frustrated myself at school as a learner to have very limited opportunities for careers advice. I do remember in the lower sixth going to see our careers advisor at school, expecting for him to reveal some incredibly powerful way forwards for me, and I still remember the single question he asked me. And I, you know, once I'd said, well, where do you think I could be going? I think his answer was, well, what are you good at? And I think at that point I just got up and left the room, because if I knew what I was good at, then I would have that pathway hopefully mapped out for you. This is going wonderfully, guys. Thank you so much for all of these. I will take a screen grab and save this our post event, and we'll share it through the various platforms that we're doing through this EdTech Festival. But clearly there are some very impassioned response there. Metacognition, lovely to see that up there. Teamwork, and I think teamwork and the collaboration is an incredibly fundamental part of where we're going, and hopefully some of these words are going to be dropping into the session as we move forward. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. Thanks so much for your contributions. I've got another poll coming up shortly where I'm going to be asking you to contribute. But if I stick on the poll all day, I'll probably run out of time. But fabulous to see all these coming up on the screen, and I can still see people contributing. What's fascinating is to see the big words come up. The fact we've got independence and resilience and citizens are clearly where most people are thinking. That's an absolutely beautiful word cloud. Definitely need to share that out with you afterwards. Okay, so clearly these are not the same set of words that we would have created if we were doing this 40 years ago. The notion of collaboration and society I don't think really entered into education in the same way. But what I certainly drew out from nearly all of those statements there, that teaching should be student-centred. It's no longer about listening to the teacher talk and absorbing the information. If they're going to contribute to society, students need to be able to acquire new information as problems arise. Learning is about discovery, not just memorising facts and regurgitating them. Okay, so education should be collaborative. That's certainly another word that featured very heavily in that little word cloud there. Yes, they should be encouraged to work together and to discover information together, piece it together and construct its meaning. Collaboration should also be dynamic. You know, it's not just about sitting together and talking. It's about having a purpose and a pathway, and different dimensions that you can bring into that situation. Okay, what we got next up? Learning should have context. Well, absolutely. Since we are no longer preparing students for specific tasks and roles, because we don't know what those specific tasks and roles will be, and we need to take a more general approach and teaching the skills that are useful in any or every situation. And lessons have little purpose if they do not have any impact in a student's life outside of the world. Okay, and last but not least, schools should be integrated within society. And this is a fascinating one, because the notion of society has changed dramatically over the last, let's say, the last decade. And with the powers of technology and the internet, students of today can do way more than impacting on just a local community. The local community is no longer just the area of space located around the school, but it reaches out and envelops the entire world. So the notion of students being integrated in society is a much more huge and complex piece. Okay, so if those are the needs of a 21st education system, what does a 21st century teacher look like? We've already addressed the fact that it's not about being an expert in technology, but it's certainly about being an expert in the habits of the mind. So here's some of my suggestions. Oh, that came up way too fast. Let's do that a little bit more slowly. Should be coming up one at a time so we can read them. But, you know, co-learners is very much a pathway that I've been passionate about as an educator for many years. Believing you can learn anything. Well, I think over the years I've taken on board probably 7 or 8 different coordinator roles when we used to have coordinator roles, anything from PSHE and RE through to assessment, curriculum, maths, and more recently computing and ICT. And if you foster a notion that you can learn anything, the children will embrace that. They absolutely will. And we should question everything. That's particularly true in today's society with the prevalence of things like fake news. Developing that critical literacy to question, to analyse, to understand the sources and compare them is absolutely fundamental. And one of my particular favourites is allowing students to teach, allow them to take control. I've seen some stunning lessons recently where I've allowed the children to step up and actually had, children as young as, I'm trying to think how old those two boys that I had as computing leads were. I think they were probably only in year 4 when they were going around to other classes in school and taking over the whiteboard and showing the teachers how to use it more effectively in front of the class. So that notion of allowing the students to teach, but they're also co-learners, we're all in this together, is very much part of that pathway. So majority of this we can wrap up quite neatly in this terminology called this term called the 4 C's. What are the 4 C's, I ask you? Well, let's throw it out to another poll and see what you guys think. You can actually stick, I think, on the same number. All you need to do now is choose whether you want to vote A, B, C or D for the 4 C's. Ideally, you choose the one that you think it is, not the one you prefer it to be. You may have some Chianti and chocolate fans out there, but ideally, we're looking for a correct response, hopefully at this point. So let's see if anyone's got any thoughts on that at all. Where are we going with these 4 C's? I've got 1 vote coming in. Bit of a boring one. Yeah, okay, let's see what else we've got there. Any other thoughts around what these 4 C's might stand for? And I'll move the poll on shortly. If we're going to stick on there, it looks like we're getting 100% votes for communication, collaboration, creativity and critical thinking. Bit disappointed that the cheese and crackers have missed out at this point, but clearly we are trying to be sensible and adhere to our things. So the 4 C's, yes, let's have a quick look and see what they stand for. Communication, collaboration, creativity and critical thinking. Okay, and these are absolutely fundamental to how inventions are discovered, how new discoveries in learning are made, how new discoveries in science and technology are made, and that's not least of all true for this scenario I'm going to describe now. So the Nobel Prize for Physics was awarded in 2010 to UK scientists, young UK scientists. They were graduates, for their discovery of graphene, a new material with groundbreaking properties. I don't know if you've heard of graphene, but it's highly conductive, highly heat resistant, etc., and is potentially going to play a huge part in technology developments over the next couple of decades, not least of all impacting on things like battery technology. Anyway, so these 2 UK students were mucking around in their science lab, and they were doing an experiment with a pencil, with a graphite pencil and some Scotch tape. And as part of that process, playful process, the 2 researchers discovered this incredible property called graphene, which they subsequently won the Nobel Prize for. So known for their playful approach to physics, the 2 researchers' breakthrough came in 2004, literally just involving a fun experiment with a block of carbon and some Scotch tape. So if we don't invite the collaboration, if we don't invite the creativity into the classroom, how do we ensure that we still continue to make these groundbreaking discoveries? So what does that look like in the classroom itself? What are the kind of strategies that we can employ in the classroom to develop this critical thinking, to develop creativity and collaboration? Well, I'm going to hopefully take you through some strategies now. So we had a little look at a word cloud at the top of the hour, at the beginning of the session. So hopefully you're familiar with word clouds and how they operate. In effect, a word cloud will take a body of text and it will create a visual representation of that body of text, highlighting within there the keywords that are repeated over and over and over again. So you can understand the context of that text, certainly the context of that text pretty quickly. If we've got any Espresso subscribers on today, you may well know that in our digital platform with all of our video content, we provide a text transcript. down the side that you can click on a button and the teacher can read through, the pupils can read through, and used in all sorts of incredibly informative and powerful ways, some of which I'll draw on as we go through this session. But I've been using those word clouds, literally doing a copy and paste, so copying the text content of that word cloud and pasting it into a word cloud engine. There are numbers out there. A couple of my current favorites are wordclouds.com and wordart.com. There are a couple of really nice and simple visual ones that you can use. So you squeeze the text into a word cloud generator and you end up with something like this. So in effect, this is a script for the video that's going to come up. When we use digital media in the classroom, certainly when I started using digital media in the classroom, my tendency, whether it was an image or a video, was just to put it up on screen and play it and then start asking questions afterwards. Of course, what we know now is that the teacher then has missed most of the opportunity to cue those children into the learning. They've no idea the context of the questions that I'm going to be asking if I don't cue them in and give them some support and scaffold around that. And this is one of the great ways in which you can provide that scaffold and support using word clouds before watching the video. So I'm not sure if I've got my Q&A up because I've got it hidden behind my session notes. But what I would normally do at this point is throw this out to you and see if you could work out the context of the video coming up. Nina, I'm not sure if you're on at all. If there's anything coming up in the chat window, perhaps you could let me know.
Yeah, sure. I have got a question for you, Chris, in the chat window. Can you set a poll and send it to students remotely and they do it in their own time? And
using Poll Anywhere. Yeah, absolutely. Poll Anywhere. It generally runs as a live poll, but you can set it up as a predetermined poll and send it out later. What I would tend to use in those kind of situations, if I'm just looking for informational answers, I would probably resort back to Google Forms or something like that if I wanted to get pull out some data. But if it's a more collaborative experience like this, absolutely. In fact, you can just set it up live and leave it open and encourage the pupils to contribute over the evening and then review it back in school later on. This is all set up using a free version of Poll Anywhere. Poll Everywhere. There are pro versions as well, subscription-based versions where you get a bit more control and functionality. But I found that most of the functionality within Poll Everywhere works pretty well within the free version.
Yeah, and I think from the point of view of like a flipped learning type approach, as you say, you can actually establish this within the day before. They can work on it and then come to the lesson very ready with what they know that you're going to do and talk about and be interested and motivated.
Absolutely, yeah. And actually giving them some time, that's a really good point, giving them some time to pore over, even just spending more time looking at this word cloud. And I've done this a number of times in live sessions with teachers and with pupils. And what's fascinating, you give them enough time and you give them enough framework around what you're expecting them to do, and they can pretty much script a video on the back of a word cloud. I mean, I guess that kind of sounds obvious because all of the words are contained there, but actually drawing out the context is not always quite so easy. And even when I do this with teachers, they struggle in the first instance. They look blankly at me as if, what on earth are you talking about? How on earth can you know what that's saying? But it's not that complicated. So there are obvious words here. We know we're dealing with a relative clause, and this video is likely to be something to do with relative clauses, but we can delve even deeper than that because one word is coming up slightly larger than the others and quite consistently. It's the word penguin. So how on earth does a penguin feature in there? Well, if we look around a bit more, we can possibly see it's an emperor penguin. The word snowball features there, so we know something's happening with a snowball, and we've got a seal at the bottom, although I challenge the fact that the image in the video is not actually a seal. I think it's a walrus, but anyway, that's not the point here. But yes, we've got some characters, we've got some potentially action with the word throw. So what I would be drawing out there is that the pupils are going to be then describing to me that this video is going to be modelling relative clauses using a penguin and a seal who are going to be throwing snowballs at each other. OK, so that's the context. Let's have a look at the video and see if that's actually right. It is. Year 5 video of relative clauses.
The penguin who threw the snowball tried to blame her friend. A relative clause is used in this sentence to give more information about the penguin. It tells you she threw the snowball.
There we go. And there's just a little example of that. How about this one? Anyone want to have a go at throwing something in the chat box about this? Otherwise, I'll just carry on talking over the top. So we've got a number of words here that I'm hoping, certainly the pupils, I'd be expecting them to realise that they're in a maths lesson, if they didn't already know that already. But then we've got words like side, scales, equals, calculation, balance. Does that give anyone a little hint as to what we might be thinking about? Well, let's do the reveal. It's a year 6.
Think of the equals sign as a set of scales that you always want to be balanced. Whatever goes on this side, before the equals sign, must be the same as what goes on this side, after the equals sign.
So it's not just about trying to understand the context of that particular video. It's also about drawing out key vocabulary, spellings, terminology, etc. Whether you're doing it through maths or science or literacy, it's an incredibly powerful way of drawing you into that video content. Now, I mentioned that in Espresso, we have text transcripts for all of our videos. If you're not an Espresso subscriber, there are still plenty of ways in which you can achieve this, particularly with modern smartphones. So I'm just going to reference one of the built-in apps that I have on my phone. This is a Google app, and it's called Recorder, I think. And what it does a text transcript of any audio recording or anything playing. So all you need to do is pop this on the table, open up the recorder and start playing the video, and it will create a complete transcript of that video. And there are other apps out there. I used to do this with Google Docs quite a lot as well, have a video playing on one machine and have Google Docs open with the voice transcription working as well. You'll find you might need to pause the video every now and then to give Google Docs a chance to catch up with the voice transcription, but that's just another way of creating a text transcript. And a final way you can do it really easily is if you've got a Microsoft account, upload your video to Microsoft Stream, and Microsoft Stream has a piece of functionality where it will create an auto transcription of that video, and it does that to create closed captions for it. So you can then copy out that closed caption piece of text and then use that to generate your word cloud. Okay, so up on screen, obviously, I've got another one, and clearly we can identify words like thirds, halves, wholes, etc., and know that we are dealing with fractions. Okay, so that's using that kind of critical thinking process to really draw them deeper into those learning videos and try and get them to analyze and predict and infer content as they're going through it. Another way you can take out some of our maths content is using the ever so popular Kahoot, which, as I expected, I'm going to try and reload this, guys, but it may not be a problem. There seems to be an issue with me getting my screen resized appropriately and getting this up on screen, so apologies, I don't think this one is going to work. I'm using a plugin called WebView in PowerPoint, and it should allow me to run a live web poll, and I was going to use a Kahoot quiz here, but it's not formatting on the screen, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see the whole page, frustratingly. Anyway, I'll basically explain what I was doing here, and effectively I was just taking one of our Espresso quizzes, and to make it slightly more engaging and slightly more, well, an awful lot more engaging and collaborative, and make it a really exciting presence in the classroom, I've literally copied and pasted some questions from an Espresso quiz into the Kahoot engine to give that really kind of exciting collaborative feel. The great thing about Kahoot, if you've ever used it, is a quiz engine. I know lots of people have been doing this with families during lockdown, but the great thing about Kahoot is that you can either play one-to-one, or you can have them playing in the team and discussing and sharing their thoughts and ideas together. There you go, you can just about see on their paired team mode there. If I open it up, again, if you've not used it, and I don't think this is visually going to work because it's the screen is all sized wrong, you get a pin number, and you go to kahoot.it on the phone, put in this pin number, and then I'm actually going to move on. So as much as I love in the window, there we go. As much as I love doing Kahoot, there's no point if we can't see the whole screen. Okay, so this is a bit more of a creative task, really developing that creative side of the pupils. This is just taking one of our animated videos in Espresso, but you could do this with any kind of video content. I've literally just randomly taken screenshots from a video story, 6 screenshots from different positions in that story. This is just dropped into a PowerPoint, and it's used an auto template to make it look a little bit more visual. But as a story starter or a story resource, that's an incredibly creative way of coming about regenerating a story. Of course, this could be done with the pupils' own illustrations and used to illustrate part of that process as well. Okay, so the next little mini kind of activity, mini strategy is really looking at images. What we do know from all of our academic research is that the image combined with teacher voice is the most powerful way to teach. Part of the rationale is that an image can convey information much faster than text. It's something like 60,000 times faster than text that we actually read an image. So if you want to get a concept or a schema or a construct or some kind of concept across to the class, one of the most powerful ways to do that is with an image. But again, just like the videos, we tend to gloss over and not train pupils how to use images. Effectively, we don't train them how to read an image. We put the image up, we ask a question, and we move on. But there is so much narrative that you can draw out of an image by slowing the pupils down, by getting them to start to piece together the story contained in that image. Just think about the way in which you construct a jigsaw in the first place. You know, you start describing the outside edges and looking for the blue bits of sky and stitching them together, and then you might notice some elements in the sky that are starting to draw down into the rest of the picture. So all the time you're describing this narrative. This is just a really simple activity website called Jigsaw Planet. You upload an image and it creates a jigsaw from it, and then the pupils have to piece it back together. But it's the process of describing the narrative as they piece it back together that develops that critical awareness of what's happening and what's taking place in that image. And another favourite of mine from that collaborative perspective is using Padlet. If you've not used it before, this is wonderful. It's like a digital version of sticky notes. So each pupil uses a digital device and they can contribute onto a sticky note board, a digital sticky note board, by sharing via text, audio, video, image, drawing, so many ways in which they can share their ideas and thoughts about a particular process or a particular piece of learning through Padlet. I've been using this for years and still continue to use it, and the beautiful thing is that you get a wonderful visual resource after that activity is finished that you can share out with the pupils. But I particularly love the fact that it's so accessible that you don't need to be able to, or don't need to be confident in typing. You can just as easily pick up the audio recorder and submit your response via audio. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you now to some of our teaching strategies from Discovery Education. Again, these are really referencing the 4 C's. And really trying to draw on that critical thinking, communication, collaboration notion when pupils are working. You don't need any subscription to access these teaching strategies. They're all on our Discovery Education website. You can go to discoveryeducation.co.uk/SOS and find a whole series. We've got about 100, another 100 waiting to go up. They're designed by teachers for teachers. They're all research based. Instructional strategies. You can filter these strategies according to objectives like, you know, whether you want them to be inferring or predicting or summarizing content of a video, and you can filter by a media type, whether you're using image, audio, text or video. And the strategies are incredibly easy to adopt. Many of them you'll be familiar with. You might have tried yourself in class, but didn't know the research basis, or wanted something a little bit more solid around the terminology in that particular strategy. So as I said, we've got 100 more waiting to go up. They're incredibly easy to adopt. They say at the top of the PDF sheet whether they're low, medium or high preparation time. Low preparation time is how quickly can you read 3 bullet points. So we're talking about a minute. High preparation time is how quickly can you read 5 or 6 bullet points and maybe print out a document as well, or prepare a little graphic organizer for the pupils to work on. So really not a lot of time that teachers need to invest in really understanding and using these strategies in the classroom. What I'd really recommend, though, we've got so many of them, the tendency is to do a bit of a scattergun approach as a teacher and try and take on board all of them. We know from all of the research, and much of this research has come out of something called Project Zero, which Harvard University Education Department have been running for a number of years, looking at critical thinking, and have that really solid, strong basis in academic research. But yes, so rather than taking on board all of them, the most successful method that I've come across is really getting to grips with 5 or 6 of them really well and repeating them regularly with the pupils. The benefit for that is that very quickly the pupils will start to adopt them as a matter of routine. They stop becoming teacher strategies and start to become pupil routine. So the next time they are presented with a video or an image, they're automatically flipping into summary, inferring, and all of those different kind of objective modes when they're looking at that video without having to be prompted. So really simply, I'm going to start with the simplest of all. This one's called Half the Story, and it's where we present an image, or rather half of an image, and we get the pupils to start describing a narrative for what may be happening in the second half of the image. Okay, you can do it with really obvious images, clearly, but I like to use images that tell a story and hide part of the story and have a bit of a surprise reveal. So this little image here, I mean, there's certainly some context you can build up from surroundings, but we're really focusing on the action, what's happening with the two people. When I've done this with pupils and teachers, you know, I typically get the same response at this point. We think she's being mugged, or we think she's being attacked, or the man's chasing after her trying to get her handbag. What we find with the slow reveal, once they've described all these different narratives, is quite a different story. It's actually going to help her. So that's quite a nice way to draw that one in. Okay, here's another one. And these are all taken from one of our modules called Stronger Than Hate that we did in partnership with the Steven Spielberg Foundation, looking at hate crime and refugee crisis and some really kind of hard-hitting topical activities. So we've got a story here. The kids are on a bus. We're looking at some action that's hidden and getting the pupils again to try and describe the narrative. I'm rather fascinated by the boy in the middle of the bus up there on the top right, who actually looks rather nonplussed and bored, but I'm assuming this was a photo shoot and he missed his opportunity to shine at that point. But anyway, let's do the reveal here. Maybe this is what you were expecting, maybe it's not what you were expecting, but we have a fight on the bus. And one more looking at this half the picture story. What's going on here? Again, an opportunity for pupils to really try and describe the narrative. Is he looking through a keyhole, perhaps? Is he about to take water from a water fountain? Is he laughing? Yeah, maybe not. It's not quite such a nice story on that one. Okay, so another strategy. This is called 6-word story. This is where you summarize an image in 6 words. Effectively, you're trying to create a narrative for an image in 6 words. You can liken this to creating maybe something like a headline for a newspaper article, or a headline or a title for a story. So you present them with an image, try and get them to digest what's in the image and describe it in 6 words. An awful lot of ways in which you can spin this out into story writing, into narrative writing, once you've actually got these 6 words encapsulated. So on the left, in the middle here, skydivers experience air resistance in free fall. I would say anyone want to contribute, but I think everyone's a little bit quiet about it. Do you think anyone would like to contribute and give an idea for a 6-word story for this Viking ship?
No, not so far.
How about you? What would you say? 6-word story for the Viking ship?
Oh gosh, now you put me on the spot there.
I love putting people on the spot. This is part of the point. We often assume that things like this are really easy to generate, and we throw these out to the pupils and say, "Go on, just come up with a title for this image." And it's not as easy as you think, is it?
It's not, but what I am thinking is there's definitely an increase in how children use those words such as "do you know what I mean?" and all those kind of markers that they are not specific and they don't home in on the key things that they're trying to get across. And this, for those children in particular, would be absolutely invaluable.
I think we've developed this weird notion over the years that there's some excitement and some power in this big reveal. where we throw open this really kind of overarching question, this really big question, and then we wait and try and get the pupils to respond. But of course, all we're doing is setting those pupils up for failure, because if we don't scaffold and provide them with the means to answer the question effectively, then they are just failing. And this is the same kind of process. It's scaffolding this process to try and get them better, to train them to read images, to train them to tell stories. They don't come they don't come by default. So I'll just give a quick couple of examples, and they don't need to be complex. It's just, what do you see? We see mangrove forest near the mouth of the river. And then the last one, well, the context around it being rare might not be known to the pupils, but, you know, certainly they would recognise that as a wooden Viking ship in a museum. Wooden Viking ship in a museum. That's only 5 words. I have to get another word in there, but yeah, get the point.
They'd love the fact that it was burial.
Yeah, exactly. That's always going to be fascinating. And apparently they have in Norway, they're just uncovering the first Viking burial in something like 200 years, Viking longship burial in something like 200 years. So I can't wait to see what that looks like. So what I've done in the next one, I've actually combined 2 of those strategies together. I've used the word cloud generator and taken a text transcript, and I have put it into a visual word cloud. But I'm now going to, in this case, I would get the pupils to draw out a 6-word story. So give me a title. They're pushing it even further. Give me a title for the video that you haven't actually watched yet. Rather than just describe the context, give me a title for a video you haven't actually watched it. And this is something where I really start to challenge the teachers, but you get it eventually. And like anything, you train and you get that process developed, and it becomes more natural. So we can tease out words like Harold and battle and king and Edward and William. And I'm assuming that you are on the same story as me. So this is something to do with the Battle of Hastings. So we might want to have a go at trying to generate a title. King Harold died in battle with William. King Harold died in battle with William. That's 7. Harold died in battle with William. There we go. We got 6. We've nailed it down to 6. I'm also really conscious. Nina, how are we doing for time? So I know we started up a little bit late.
Yeah, we were about 20:03, so just slightly over, but don't feel pressured.
Well, I'll rattle through quickly and then kind of come to a conclusion. Rather than getting you to contribute, I would have asked you to throw up a little Padlet here and give me some for this little video on Battle of Hastings. There was my Padlet screen there where we were going to do that, but I'm just going to run you through very quickly through some more strategies, hopefully, to so we can close up as quickly as possible. So see, think, wonder. Show an image. What do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? Again, it's one of those processes where they'll give you really basic information and answers at first until you train them and talk them through that process. You can support that with a graphic organizer. And then we're going to look at a very slightly different way to do this slow reveal. So rather than just showing half a picture, or rather than taking them slowly through it, I'm going to do something called a slow reveal with See, Think, Wonder, and get them to start describing the narratives as I do the slow reveal. Very provoking and topical image at this point. So we've got a little bit of information we can start to describe, but not enough to really start to think about any kind of narrative here. Unless you are a particularly US sports fan, you might recognise a badge on the T-shirt there. I think I'm honing you in a little bit more. So we know it's sports related. We know it's something to do with, I'm assuming that's an American football outfit there. But as we reveal more, we can see it's Colin Kaepernick taking the knee, with a very very timely and thought-provoking discussion that we could draw out from there. One of my real favourites, and I think I'll just finish off with this one. It's 3 truths and a lie. So this is another one utilising the text transcript, where you give the text transcript to the pupils and you ask them to draw out 3 factual statements from that and make up a 4th one. And then you present the visual reference, the video, and then you turn that into a quiz where the pupils have to tease out and identify which one of those 4 facts is a lie. You can do this in quiz format, and I often take this into an activity where the pupils drop this into Google Forms and then actually create a Google Form quiz style with all of the class's questions, contributions put together into one long mammoth quiz. They absolutely love that. Okay, so at that point I would play the video and then present the 4 facts. And hopefully you can just very quickly skim and scan that and let me know that I'm hoping that you would identify number 2 as being the lie in that case. And very lastly, another good favourite of mine for collaborative discussion, critical thinking, really combining all of the 4 C's into one activity. And interestingly, it's got a 4 C at the beginning of it. So this is called 4 Corners, and it's the starting of debating effectively. Pupils have to take a viewpoint on a statement. Once they've taken a viewpoint on a statement, they go to one of the 4 corners of the classroom where you've posted up 4 statements. One says agree, one says disagree, one says strongly agree, and one says strongly disagree. So present the statement, get them to stand in that place in the classroom, discuss with their peers in that little group why they think they slightly agree or strongly disagree. And then you give them a chance to move around again and change position based on that kind of basic concept of debating that particular idea or that notion. And the pupils absolutely love that one. Really powerful, nice teaching strategy. Okay, I think I've got through to the end. I hope you found that useful. Apologies that overran slightly. I was a little bit delayed getting started with some of our technical issues. But I hope it's been useful for you. If you'd like to know any more information about that, please feel free to get in contact with me, cnash@discoveryeducation.com. If you'd like to know any more about any of our services, whether that's Espresso, our health and relationships products, STEM Connect or coding, you can also go to discoveryeducation.co.uk and find out about all our products there and request a trial for any of those services. So thanks ever much for joining me, and I look forward to sharing with you at another time.
Thanks, Chris. As always, that was totally fascinating. That was great. And I think from the point of view of as a primary school teacher, you're very aware that you're teaching children for jobs that don't even exist currently, and having the right resources to be able to do that. And this would fit so well into that, and balancing it with a very knowledge-based curriculum alongside those thinking skills. Was really great. I've just got a couple of quick questions. So one of them was how do you make the word cloud from the video content?
Okay, so as in the case of Espresso, if you've got the Espresso service, there's a button on next to the video that you click on that allows you to view the full text transcript, and I just copy that, and then I go to wordclouds.com or wordart.com, and then you just paste it into the box that says create, and then it automatically generates a word cloud for you. And as I said, if you haven't got Espresso and you want to create a text transcript, get one of the transcribing apps. Particularly good on Google at the moment. Apologies for that, but Google have got a particularly good one. Just open it up, let the video that you want transcribed play, and it will turn it into a full text transcript that you can then copy out and put into a word cloud yourself.
Thank you. And similarly, what tool do you use for the slow reveal?
That's just PowerPoint. Literally just a PowerPoint slide, and I had a really nice I'm more than happy to share the PowerPoint slide, and you can copy that one out and put your own image behind it. It's a series of 4 slides effectively where I just move a white box across the page, but the trick with it is to make it nice and visual, and I use the morph transition that allows all that lovely kind of transitioning of the shapes to look a little bit more natural.
Great, thank you. And a question about whether your slides will be made available for anyone to have
absolutely more than happy to make them available. Are you hosting them, Nina? Are you going to be hosting them as part of this service afterwards?
Yeah, we can do. I think we could probably do something clever and link it with the link that goes out for people to rewatch or something. I don't know, but I'm sure we can find a way to make them available if you're happy to share.
I'm always happy to share my presentations, and as I said, I will also do a screen grab of the lovely word cloud that everyone generated at the beginning, and share that around as well.
Great, thank you, and a lot of positivity from viewers to show their appreciation for you today, Chris, so thanks very much.
Fantastic. I'm really pleased everyone enjoyed it.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, take care. Bye now.